John, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics here, and it's really well known for everyone. It's ARR, my favorite topic is generating an activity schedule of ARR that makes sense and helps you answer questions and understand the business.
That's right. Super powerful tool that we have that we can build these schedules. It's
Yep.
it's really fast. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, definitely building the schedules and numbers are a key thing of a key example of what numbers are about. So, what are we going to cover today? We're going to review our ARR activity schedule. For those of you who watch our videos, you know that we're kind of a academic discussion, practical discussion of analyses, and then of course we're showing the numbers platform as we go through this. As always, extra credit. John and I will discuss some of the common issues around data and ARR schedules that we've seen. I mean, it ranges from like what do you do and how do you handle inconsistent dates, invoice dates, and ACV ARR amounts when you're building these schedules. And really, it speaks to how do you present some data with confidence that people can trust? You can trust it and other people can trust it. So let's jump right into this, and we're going to go into a Google Sheet. What we're looking at here is what could be some order detail coming out of Salesforce or a different CRM. Um, you've got the standard things here, right? Is it closed won? What kind of deal type is it? When was the deal closed? What was the price? A lot of systems will calculate an ACV. You're assuming that's right in many cases. So we'll talk about that at in the extra credit part. Critically, you need your start and term date. And is it a SKU that is eligible for ARR ACV calculations? Term date here, like what is the definition of term date? Is a lot of people will show 1/1 to 12/31, but then you need the right term date to understand how to calculate ACV. Again, that'll be in the extra credit. So let's say you've got 100 orders with 500 of products sold, and you want to summarize it. And let's just jump right into it. What are we talking about here? So this is a great schedule that I like to generate and see. It's called we call it the ARR activity schedule. And the first thing is it's a roll forward schedule, right? So it's going to show you what did you start with in the beginning, and for those of you who watched our headcount videos, same thing. What was your headcount in the beginning? But here we've got what was your ARR in the beginning of the quarter? What amount of ARR came in from new customers? How much expired? How much was renewed at the original contract price? We actually break out an upsell, downsell on renewals. Did any contracts churn? And then what did you end with? Now, there's a bunch of different categories you can have inside of here for metrics, and all this is editable, and you can customize it the way you want it to, including the labels. Um, but this is basically what most people want to see. And then for your next time period here, and we're in a pivot table, of course, let's start with that ending inventory or ending ARR and roll it forward again. So in this case, they added a second new customer, 18,000 hours of annual contract value, and now they're at 28,000. And the way I've set up this data here is you can kind of start to see the activity. The first customer, this 10,000, is expiring 6 months later. And then we do have the renewal at the original 10,000 with a $3,500 upsell. Now you can start to see they went from 10,000 to 13,500, and there's your new. And then, what would renewal look like with a downshift? Here's your 13,500 from here, expiring, and it does renew at the original contract value, but then there's a 6,000 downsell. Now you could say alternatively, I don't want to see the upsell downsell, but if you just want to see the net contract value, then we have a record here called net contract value, and that metric can be replace the breakout here. I really like to see the upsell downsell because I like to see what's happening. If you're going to do that, you're just going to have this original contract renewal value in there to keep the roll forward schedule correct. Here's another thing. Here's like an expiration of this 18,000 hour contract. So we only have 2 customers in this data. But you can see here in this quarter doesn't renew. So you have an expiration, no renewals. Now your ending ARR is dropping down to the 7,500, which was from here. and then the customer renews the next quarter, and now but then this customer decides to churn. So they expire, but we do a reclass to churn if you had a churn record, and then now you're back to the 18,000 uh, ending ARR. So great little, very powerful schedule. Like I say little because it's very easy to create here. We'll show you how you run this using the numbers Google Sheet add-on. We're going to jump right in here, and you're going to run the data set, and this is our automation. This is going to read in your orders. It's going to write data back to the output tab, and then it's going to summarize the data here. So no matter how many orders you have here, you could have 1,000 records. It's still going to generate this ARR schedule. Right now, we're looking at it by quarter. And then it's also going to output enough data for you to look at the ARR schedule by customer. So now you can see if you want to drill into the summary here and just understand what's happening at a customer level. And I love this. So you can see here 10,000. Here I'm looking at it by month. So you can see how the customer stayed. Then here's the month of May, expired, renewed, upsell. And the reason why this is important is not only be able to answer questions, people say what's happening or who expired that didn't renew, but also you can have, and we'll go over this in the extra credit piece, you can have bad input values that are going to cause some inconsistencies on your ARR calculation. And at a customer level here, you can look at it and see what's happening and then figure out, oh, there's a disconnect here. Gives you a lot of easy information to do research from. So I think that's about it. Again, the advantages of this are a very consistent calculation every time. It scales with your records. So it doesn't matter how many records you have here, you're still going to generate an ARR activity schedule. This is by quarter, it's in a pivot table. You could, for example, pivot this by half or year. And so that's very easy to do. And so you could have the halves going across the top here and then see the same activity schedule. There's a little filter you have to modify just to make sure you're including the right records, but it works very easily. And in a matter of a few seconds, you can have a pivot that shows the data by month, quarter, half, or year. Okay, so let's jump into the extra credit part. And this is definitely going to be a little technical, and we're going to do some building in numbers, which is awesome. And we're going to show you how easy it is. So let's do a couple things here real quick. So let's open the numbers job runner. And again, this is how we just refreshed the model. We'll do it here real quick and you'll see the numbers will refresh. So what do we want to talk about here? We want to talk about um, data in. And in this case, a lot of times you can see systems will provide an annual contract value of a SKU, and that's fine. But in the world of where you, if it's coming from Stripe or some other big system, that's fine. But a lot of systems don't people are invoicing on their own. And the ACV value here is not coming out of an enterprise system. It's coming out of humans typing it in. And so the risk is you could have the incorrect ACV. And even if you have the correct ACV, John, we've seen this a ton of times, just the term dates on the subscriptions are inconsistent. So you've got a lot of people who will show the end date here as the term date is active, and that's the last day of the contract being active. And then you'll have some people who do it where they show the term date, the last day is the anniversary date, which is the first day that the contract is inactive. So you get some inconsistency, but then they're still going to calculate ACV or show ACV the way they want it. So they're not really calculating ACV. So what we're going to do here is show you how can you calculate ACV. So to be clear, the amounts that we're using right here in the schedule are the amounts that are provided here in the input data set. Now we're going to show you how can you calculate your own ACV using our function. So let's jump in real quick and we're going to go into the flow. And the flow is very easy. We're going to stay in this one stage 2. Let's just review it real quick. So what does this flow do? It reads in the order data, and then we are reading in the start and end date, return date, and we're going to fill some dates that we need for each contract. Here's where we're actually determining the dates. So if you go here, we're taking values in and saying, well, what should the fill start and end month be for the contract? So just to be clear, for every invoice that's there, we need to duplicate the record for a month to generate the schedule for each month. And then so now we have those dates from this function of fill from here, fill from the start month to fill from the end month. This stage will fill the months. And then we're going to do some calculations to calculate the upsell downsell amount. And then we're going to write into ARR. So you can see here in the ARR function, which is quite big, we're taking in all these values. So in order to do what we do and to create all this schedule of is there churn, is there whatever, a new business. So here we have a start date of a contract of 9/23 to 9/24. And for the month of September, we want this to say, oops, new customer. Okay, what the ARR function is going to do is say, oh, in the month of 9/23, you have ARR. This is where we're calculating all the values. ARR new was 60,000. ARR ending was 60,000. That's coming from here, which is coming from that sheet. So what we want to do is we're going to real quick. We're going to go back instead of taking ACV from your input data set. We're going to add a step here to calculate. So we're adding a new execute function step. And what function do we want to calculate? We're going to calculate ACV. And this is a function I copied in this model earlier. And now we're going to map all, let's look at this ACV calculation. It needs extended price, a start date, end date, and then you need to tell it, is that end date active or not? In this case, example, a 12/31 would be active. But we'll come back to that in a second here. So let's map it. So we're going to go from the orders. We're going to take in extended price. We're going to take in the start date. We're going to take in the end date. Term date, I think. We got our term date. And then end date is active. So we're going to have to figure out what we're going to map in here. So in this case, oh, ACV is valid. We need that too. So that's that true false value we have. So you don't want to calculate ACV, for example, on services SKUs. So you're processing all orders. This is going to say, hey, this one's false. Don't calculate ACV there. So now we need this end date is active field. If we go look at it real quick, what is the function telling us? If it's blank 12/31, we are going to keep it at 12/31. So we need end date is active. We need a true value here. So if we go true, now you're going to get a 1/1/25 to 1/1/26, and then you get an even 25,000 calculated, right? So they can see how that works. If this was false, you can see here we're not calculating the right ACV. So these two settings go hand in hand. If you want to calculate the right ACV, you need to know, is this end date at the last active day or is it not? So it is active. So what are we going to do here? So okay, so a quick way to get true into there is we are going to add a quick new function. Do your, sorry, we're going to go functions. And we're going to create a new function fx for labels only. And we're just going to create a static label here that is true. Okay, this is the easiest way to create just static labels and feed it, repeat it statically every time for every record. So now if we go back into the flow, go to that stage, we're going to add that function. Fx for labels only. And we're just going to take in, we're going to map something here, model name. And then when we get to ACV here, we're going to take in that static value, label true. So we'll call this fx for labels. Okay, so what that's going to do is for every record that comes in, it's just going to pass a static true into it, meaning the end date is active. And actually, now that I think about that, I think our data, it's actually not right because our data is, all of our data is end date is not true. So that's how you do that. This record right here is going to have it. So this is an example of where we see inconsistency. So let's just run it through. And what we're going to see is we're going to calculate ACV instead. And then what's going to happen is it's going to actually output a different ARR value than 18,000. And that was the whole point of this. Most of these records are all on the term date is the first inactive day. So I know it's getting long, a little long. Let's kind of push through this real quick. So we calculate ACV here, just to be clear, it outputs a value. Let's go back and do something with that value now. So for now, ARR in that function, instead of taking ACV in from orders, we're going to take it in from here. So now we're taking in, instead of reading in the value that's from orders, we're going to say use this value. Okay, so now we're done. Let's go back into the template here and let's run it. So that change we made is live. And if we look at the ARR schedule, we're going to see this 18,000 is probably going to, yeah, there you go. So now you can see here, because I said the last active day there is true, those values are all changing and that's inconsistent with what we want, because most of those records are not, the last date is the first, is not active. But here for this one, just this one record I changed, that is the case. So now if I change, what we're going to do here is make this 1/1/26. Like so now every record is the anniversary date. And now what we need to do, if we run it again, now it's just going to change that one back, that one, and now they're all going to be wrong. And so what we're going to do here real quick is, now we know they're all wrong. Let's jump back into the flow real quick here. If we look at AR or ACV real quick, again, a lot of detail here, but what we're saying is end date is active. So we can leave it blank. And this would be 1/1/26. So this is a example where you're testing out the function. Well, if it's 25,000 and we're doing the first day is inactive and we leave this blank, you can see we're calculating ACV as the expected value. So let's go back and now let's just leave it blank. So we're going to say end date is active. We're going to do none. Okay, let's just, so that was a full round trip there of a good example of troubleshooting and showing you how things work. Let's run it again. Now everything's going to come through as nice round values as we expected because the date matches. All right, and there you go. So the reason why a really powerful reason we showed you all this is just not just, to show you how things work, but when you troubleshoot and look at some values, sometimes you're going to have orders where the incoming date is not consistent. That whoever accounting, whoever they're doing, you have different people doing invoicing. You're going to do a 1/1 through 12/31 for one customer and a 1/1 through 1/1 for another customer. And that's going to create inconsistencies. So you're going to have to decide how you handle that. And that's what this was meant to show you. One final piece I'll show you real quick is, again, there is this ACV true piece here. So most of the time, all your orders are going to come in. I've seen it where people just run their subscription data through a spreadsheet and then try to make that work. And now you've got subscription data in here and some other data here and some other data in this tab. My recommendation is just you want process all your orders at once. That way you have control totals and you can make sure every order is there. And then you just want your function, your calculations to know what to do when they process each of those records. So this is the case here that the numbers function there knows that, well, if there's a true false record here, then I'm not going to calculate ACV for the false records. So I think that's it. John, any other comments or questions do you think?
No, I think we covered a lot of them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's always a lot of different things. The biggest thing this numbers ARR schedule is going to get you is consistency of generating this, outputting the data it looks like it came out of a SaaS system. Now you can easily pivot on it. So again, you can pivot on it by half year, quarter, or month. Oh yeah, let's just show you the ARR flag, how that works. But here's our ARR detail, and we're showing it by month. This is the same data as the summary. I just made a copy and then of the pivot. What you can do here, if you want to see this by half, you just go down, we're going to take out month, and then we're going to bring in, let's show half. Let's just do quarter. It's not showing by quarter, but that's just showing the summarized by quarter. There's a second critical step, and there's this field called reporting RPT flag. We're showing quarters. You have to only include the checkboxes where it shows quarter here. So you see quarters here, quarters here, quarters here. And so now you're going to get there. So now you can double check this, but does it roll forward? Looks like I need that blank. So I'll have to look into that. So there's a slight little calculation issue I got to look at, and I think it's related to this. Oh no, so this is working. Sorry, I was thrown off by the here. So this is the total. So I was looking here. So for this one customer, started off with no bookings, added 10 or ARR added 10, finished with 10. Started with 10, finished with 10. Started with 10, finished with 13. Right. For this customer, started with 0, customer 2, finished with 0. Started with 0, added 18, finished with 18. So you can change this if you wanted it real quick, if you want to do it by half, even you could just choose half. Just to repeat, you have to go to the reporting flag. Now you have to look at each of these, only use the ones that have the word half in it, which is those two. Hit OK. Now check it out. You're only looking at halves. You don't have to do, actually, we don't need that. You don't have to do any additional work. You're just using the power of the pivot table. So same thing, just look at it real quick, start with 0, added 10 and a half, finish with 10. 10, start with 10, add a bunch of activity, 3,500, finish with 13.5, start with 13.5. Again, all in the half. You could switch this to year if you wanted to, or back to month. So let's go back to month because that's the way I like the detail. Columns, month, same thing, reporting flag, every single one that has month, which is all of them. Okay, hit OK. So now we're back to month, same thing. Start with 0, added 10, finish with 10, roll it forward. Okay, so that's the power of numbers. We're running the orders through here. You only have the order once. Then we have a flow where we're replicating that order for every month in a range. And then we're running that record for each month and assessing it. What would that record look like in January or February or March, but for these metrics? And then calculating them and then outputting them, and then you can pivot on them, right? Fantastic stuff. One final thing is you can go get this, go up here, go to our catalog. We'll publish it under service models. We already have orders to revenue. We'll have ARR schedule we'll put up here later today.